Health, PG Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies, and
Good evening everyone. Dear viewers, today I am going to talk on research design in social work. I am Dr. Dilip Divakar, Associate Professor with School of Social Work, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. As you all know, research design is one of the integral and key aspect in any research. And first we will try to understand what is research design means and what are the various definitions related to research design. If you try to understand research design is an outline of the study which we are going to undertake. Or else we can also say this is a blueprint which provides for us for the investigation which we are going to undertake. In the blueprint, we will see what we are going to study, how we are going to study, what kind of tool we are going to use, how we are going to administer those tools, and how we are going to analyze the data, and we are going to present the findings also. And coming to the definition, we will see some of the two important definitions which will give you a brief idea for you with related to the research design. The first definition, which is being provided by Burns and Groom, which tries to define research design as a blueprint for conducting a study with maximum control over factors that may interfere with the validity of the findings. And the second definition, which has been provided by Perrow in 1997, where he tries to describe the research design as a plan that describes how, when, and where data are to be collected. So from these two definitions and the meaning of the research design, we would have got an idea what is research design is all about. And when we are trying to understand, in social work research, there are broadly 6 types of research designs are there. And these 6 research designs, where we have to use, how we can use, is what we are going to see in today's presentation. The first design is the exploratory research design. The second one is the descriptive research design. The third one is the explanatory research design. And the fourth one is the experimental research design. Fifth one is the evaluation research design. And the sixth one is the action research. Of these 6 research design, the 3 research design, that is the experimental, evaluation and action research, they are directly related to the social work research, whereas altogether all this, the remaining 3, exploratory, descriptive and explanatory, can be used in other social science disciplines also. First we will take the exploratory research design and we will try to understand when and where we can use the exploratory research design. See, when we know about a subject very little, and we did not know about the topic, and there is no previously existing theories or any ideas. So on that particular circumstances, using the exploratory research design will be more apt because we don't have any knowledge about it. And usually in this research design, we try to formulate the problem because there is no existing problem we know. So we try to formulate the problem, we try to clarify the concepts. Based on clarifying the concepts, we will try to identify what are the various variables we can take in terms of actually conducting a study. And hypothesis also, we are forming the hypothesis. We are not testing the hypothesis when it comes to the exploratory research design. And usually the exploratory study starts with when we are doing any literature review and when we try to find there is certain gray area or some areas where we are not having actually much knowledge towards. Or else when we are discussing with an individual, either during the in-depth interviews or case studies, or when we are discussing with a group of people using a focus group discussion, we try to identify some gray areas or new research problems. So during those times also we can employ the exploratory research design. And in this process, usually we either interact with an individual or a group of people having an in-depth or a deeper insight knowledge towards a particular topic. We usually try to take in the research design. And thirdly, when we are trying to see what the examples in terms of where we can employ this research design, we can see in terms of when there is a new problem. For an example, when the corona came into started affecting, corona pandemic came. So initially we did not know what kind of an effect the corona has, how the people's lives are going to get affected. Or else similarly, when a government is launching any new programs, either that could be related to children, or that could be related to women, or that could be related to any of the geographical location like rural, urban or tribal, any regions. So when we don't have any knowledge or any insight, or similarly when we are when the floods came, either in terms of Kerala floods and other floods, when the flood came, we don't know what will be the consequences or what kind of, how it will affect the people. So during those kind of situation, exploratory research design will be more apt to use. And when we talk about in terms of which research method will be more apt, so broadly there are two research methods, either the quantitative and the qualitative is what used. When it comes to the exploratory research design, usually we use the qualitative research design because we don't know much about the phenomena or the topic which we have taken. So using a qualitative research method will be more apt when it comes to the exploratory research. Then we will move to the next design, that is the descriptive. So when we say descriptive research design, when and where it will be more apt, when a researcher can use the descriptive research design. Descriptive research design has more guidelines as compared to the exploratory, because at least we have some kind of a knowledge or insight with related to the inquiry which we are doing. That could be related to people, product or situation, or when we are trying to understand a phenomena, already we have some kind of a pre-existing knowledge towards it. So we used to employ some guidelines when we are undertaking a study. And secondly, the thing is that though we have some knowledge, we will not be fully driven by a structured research hypothesis. Here our purpose is not to see the relationship between the one variable with the others, or in terms of seeing the association of the variables. Basically in this research design, our aim is to describe the characteristics of the population based on the data that we collected from the samples. It often requires the use of probability sampling technique. Certain situations, the non-probability sampling techniques are also used. Hope you will be already having some knowledge about the probability sampling and the non-probability. Probability sampling gives equal chance to each and every samples to get included. Usually in the probability sampling, we use the systematic random sampling or random sampling or cluster sampling. So these are some of the sampling designs we use. And the non-probability, usually it is done on the basis of convenience. So convenience sampling, snowballing, quota sampling. So these are certain designs we use. When it comes to the descriptive research design, majorly we try to go ahead with the probability. In certain cases we go for the non-probability sampling also. When it comes to the method, similarly, as I said, both qualitative and quantitative methods are there. In case of the descriptive research design, we usually use the quantitative method. When in certain cases we also use the qualitative method. But broadly we tend to use the quantitative research method for the descriptive research design. And when the findings that we get, usually we try to present those findings in the form of frequency distribution, summary statistics and averages. And we portray the characteristics of the individual, the situation or a group in the descriptive research studies. Some of the examples of the descriptive research studies and when we can use it. So maybe when we are trying to understand the socio-economic condition of a tribal in India, or in terms of trying to understand the livelihood of the people, health of the people, or in terms of understanding the education profile of the children of a particular actually community or a geographical location. So in those circumstances, already we have some kind of a pre-existing knowledge, but we wanted to gain more insight and knowledge. So in those circumstances, using a descriptive research design will be more apt. Now we will come to the third research design, that is the explanatory research design. Explanatory, from the word itself, we can understand that this particular research design, it tries to examine, is there any relationship between the variables? Why a particular phenomena occurs? Can we able to predict the future occurrences? So we are trying to explain. That's why the whole design is called as actually explanatory research design. And usually in this particular research design, the research is being fully driven by the research hypothesis. In the research hypothesis, we will try to examine the nature and the directions of the relationship between as well as among the variables that we are taking it for the study. And this relationship which we are studying, usually we try to test it through some statistical tools. And we try to establish the relationship, and we will try to see whether the relationship is valid or not. And we will see whether it is statistically significant or not. So this is what broadly we try to do in case of the explanatory research design. And the explanatory research design is also called as actually diagnostic also, because we are trying to diagnose the relationship as well as the associations. For this particular research design, in terms of method, when we are thinking, usually we use the quantitative research method. We don't use the qualitative at all for the explanatory research design, because it is fully driven by the statistical technique. We are trying to understand the relationship between the variables, between and among the variables. So quantitative method is more apt for this particular research design. If you are trying to understand it through some examples, in terms of when we are trying to investigate the factor that contribute to better health, or in terms of the nutritional status among the children. So what are the factors which contributes for the better health of the children or the nutritional status of the children? Usually it could be the mother's education, or the family's income, or the children's geographical location. So these are some of the factors which will be having a direct relationship with the variable in terms of actually increasing their better health or in terms of improving their nutritional status. So finding and establishing this relationship, and in terms of actually showing it significantly, how much influence it can have. So these kind of relationship, the explanatory or the diagnostic research study can establish. Similarly, in terms of the empowerment of women, what are the factors which determines the empowerment of a woman? Either that could be related to the education which they get, or else it could be the geographical location, whether they belong to the urban area or the rural area, that might be having a detrimental factor. Or it could be related to the income, whether the family is rich or poor, whether that can have an influence on the woman's empowerment status. So we are going to examine it, and we are going to establish those relationships statistically in terms of proving how much influence it has. So when we are trying to do this kind of study, or when we are trying to see the relationships, or when we are trying to use statistical method in terms of proving, explanatory research or the diagnostic research design will be more apt. And in terms of conducting this particular actually research design, usually we need to know the universe. So unless and until if we don't know the universe, because we have to adopt the probability sampling method, we cannot go for the non-probability sampling. So we need to know the probability. So we need to know the sample size. So we need to know the universe, and usually it will be quantitative method based. And these are certain characteristics which needs to be fulfilled if you wanted to employ the explanatory or the diagnostic research design. Next, we will come to the experimental research design. When and where we can use the experimental research design. So usually we hear of experimental research design in the natural science. But in case of natural science, the experiments are conducted in a closed setting where the environment is not been actually having a direct influence over the subject. Whereas in case of the social science experimental research designs, it will be conducted in the community setting where there are a lot of actually environmental factors which will be having an influence. So this is the major actually divide between a experimental research study which is being conducted in a natural science as versus the or vis-a-vis the social science research. So usually it is designed to establish the relationship here also, and it begins with the questions concerning the relationship between one or two variables, what kind of relationship they have, and usually it is advanced through an hypothesis. So we will be having certain hypothesis in mind and we will try to state it that so and so variable is having a relationship with the other variable, and we will try to advance the research using those hypotheses. And here the experiment, it comes in terms of the independent variable which we are taking, it is get manipulated, and we will try to see that how this independent variable is having an effect on the dependent variable, and we are going to observe the relationship or the causal and effect relationship between these two variables. That is what majorly we try to do in case of the experimental research designs. Some of the examples that we can see is the iron fortification in the midday meal scheme, so which is being provided for the children in the primary schools. These studies has been conducted by UNICEF and some of the actually organizations which the international organization and the UN bodies, they are working on the health, because we all know more than 50% of the children are having actually iron deficiency. So how we can improve the iron deficiency, how we can actually reduce the iron deficiency. So the government has taken an initiative with the help of the UN bodies, WFP and UNICEF, and they implemented this program. Similarly, the same case with the anemic actually adolescent girls. More than 70% of the girls are anemic. So can we do any experiment? Can we able to provide actually the IFA tablets for a certain period with a certain actually amount? If you are providing that, can we really able to address the anemic level of the adolescent girls? So these are certain experiments which has been conducted at the community level to see the actually effect of the factors that we are introducing. And next comes is the how we can make use of this experimental research design in the social work. So in case of social work, there are two broad actually experimental studies. One is the single subject research design, and the next one is the group research design, which is been broadly used, and we will also have a look in terms of the evaluation research. So usually the experimental research design in case of social science research, we conduct it through the evaluation research. So we will see what is evaluation research and when and how we will conduct the evaluation research. See, evaluation research broadly, if you are trying to understand, it is a systematic process that we undertake in terms of a program to see how well the program does it. The evaluation result can be used to maintain or improve the program quality, and also it helps in terms of ensuring the future planning, and it tries to provide more evidences to take an appropriate decision. So this is the broad idea of evaluation research, and this is one of the very important actually research design which is being used in the social work, because social work research is always an applied and we try to intervene in the community. So evaluation research design are very important. So evaluation research design can be conducted at various levels. One is the formative, the second one is the implementation stage, the third one is the progress, and the last one is summative. So if you are seeing this diagram, you can understand actually this research design in a much better way. Usually when we say the formative is the beginning stage. So before we start any program, we need to know the baseline study which we conduct in terms of understanding what is the need of the people, where they stand, what is the current situation of the people. In terms of understanding this particular process, actually we conduct the formative research. Once the baseline study is conducted, then we will move to the next level, that is the program implementation. And during the program implementation, again it is mandatory, or which is actually prerequisite to conduct a study to see whether the implementation is going in line or whether it is moving towards the set objectives or the goal. So we try to conduct actually this particular process in terms of the implementation research. And the next comes in terms of the progress. Usually we conduct the progress research during the mid of any study, because we wanted to know how much we have achieved, what are the barriers that we encounter, and what are the challenges that we have, where we need to remove those barriers, where we need to give the push so that we could be able to achieve the end goal or the set goal. So to understand this particular process, conducting a progress research or a midterm research in general, usually in the non-governmental sector or the development sector use, the midterm research, midterm assessment is very much required. And finally it comes the summative research, that is after the end of the project, we need to know whether we have achieved our set goal or not, how much we have achieved, what is left behind, where we need to actually carry forward from that stage. So that is where the summative research comes. For any funders, they will be interested to know how much they could be able to achieve in a particular program. So the summative researches are conducted in that process. And next, we will try to see in terms of the evaluation research designs. So within evaluation, okay, though we say this is the process, but evaluation research are conducted at various levels. One, in terms of the after only, without actually control. The second one is that after only with control. And the third form is the before and after without control. And the last one is the before and after control. So we will try to understand what is this first one, that is the after only with control. After only means we are going to conduct only the summative research. After the end of the project, we are going to see how much the project has achieved. But we don't have any comparison group. It is an experimental research. Usually in experiments, we always say we should be having a experimental group and a control group. But here we are not having any control. We are going to implement a project and we are going to see the final summative assessment. In the second actually is that after only with control. So we are going to take two groups here. One will be kept as a control. The other one we are going to do the experiment and the project will be implemented, and finally we are going to see the assessment, actually the summative, actually the final outcome we are going to assess it. But here the lagging part is that where they started we don't know. We know only the end result. To fulfill this particular graph, the third research design has come, that is the before and after. That is, we are going to do some formative research also, that is we are going to conduct a baseline, and then we are also going to do a end assessment also. Here we are not having a control, one particular group we are taking and we are doing this one. And the last one is that we are having a control group also, we are having an experimental group, we are doing actually a pre-assessment also, and then we are also doing a post-assessment after the end of the project. So this is the process we carry out. But though we all know in general actually the last research design which is more scientifically good, but there are a lot of limitations when it comes to social science research. Either that could be related to the cost which we are investing, or it could be related to the time which we need. Okay, what is the whole objective of a particular actually the evaluation which we are carrying out? Because the last research design before and after with control is a very cost intensive as well as it requires a lot of time. So many of the research design may not be able to address this fact. So for this particular fact, we could not be able to go for the final actually research design. So next one is the action research. Though we may not be able to cover the full action research in today's discussion, surely this is the part one of the research design. So I will try to take it forward, this action research, in the next discussion, because action research is one of the very, very integral part of social work research. If you see what is action research, Kurt Lewin is the father of the action research. He started the action research actually in 1934 during the Second World War. And the studies which he has conducted is broadly referred as the LOWA studies. The basic presumption that he had is that, okay, people are facing some problems, okay, and if they wanted to change, if we given an option, if you make them to reflect related to the problem and why they are facing a particular problem, it will provide an opportunity for the people in terms of taking certain initiative, and taking those initiative will really help them in terms of actually coming out of that problem. So here the basic premises is that it is fully an applied research where our focus is in terms of identifying a common problem, okay, and making the people or the respondents to understand the problem, and coming together they are going to reflect on the problem. What are the problems that they are facing, why they are facing a particular problem, and what are the ways in terms of addressing it, what are the strategies or the activities which they need to undertake in terms of actually addressing those problems. They will be discussing on that, and then finally they will come together and they will decide upon, they will take this initiative, particular initiative or a set of initiatives, so that they could be able to come out of the problem. So they will be able to take action and they will come out. So this is what broadly Kurt Lewis has actually tried to talk about in the action research. We will take it further and we will have a detailed discussion on action research in our next presentation. Along with that, we will be taking about the single subject research design as well as the group research design. I hope actually you have enjoyed this talk, and the next talk will be much more interesting to know about how we are conducting the applied research in social work. Thank you all.